everybody, welcome. It's Kate Quinn. Welcome to So Steady Facebook Live with me, Kate Quinn. so glad to be here, and we have started a project quite a while ago, and it was called Tile Titans, and it was based on some amazing tile designs that I have seen and just feel like they really lend themselves well to quilting designs. So my intent is to add number 5. I planned for 12 of these designs, and I'm trying to have them be on the 3rd Sunday of the month throughout the rest of this year until they're all done. The challenge is that I do travel a lot, so it's been difficult to make them consecutive because this is a live class. So hope you'll be patient with me. Today I went ahead and I put my white grid glider on. This glider, I love it for a few reasons. This one, if it is linty as it is right now, it actually stays very well even when it's linty, right? If I pull on it and try and like move it around, it stays really, really well, even when it's dirty. In order to clean it, let me show you real quick. This is a trick that I learned from my buddy, Ann Moore. This is just a baby wipe, no alcohol, no chemicals, no moisturizer, just a very plain, inexpensive baby wipe. And just wipe it off. You can see right around the hole. That's where mostly the lint develops, right there. And then I'm just going to kind of push the lint off to the side, all in one direction. What I like about this technique is it can be used right away. The amount of moisture that actually ends up on it from the baby wipe is very little. So you're not putting a very sticky wet thing on your surface. And then it's very easy to use. So you can see there's a lot of lint on there. This one's been used quite a few times. All right, when you put it on, let me show you something. Don't ever take your foot off when you're trying to put your gliders on. The foot actually protects the glider from your needle. So let's go ahead and just slide it under there. I've already got my bobbin in, and then I can just put this right into place. Okay, so a little bump right there, so I'll just smooth it out. Okay, some people have said they do polish this. I have not tried that, honestly. I haven't found a need to. I feel like this surface is already like a Teflon surface. It's quite smooth and moves really easily. So I haven't polished it, but I do clean the back every so often just to keep it in tip-top shape. All right, let me share kind of where we're going with our Tile Titans today. All of the Tile Titans are based on a quadrant of 4 sections, okay? And so this is where we're going, and I have to admit, I'm super excited about this part, and I even have already developed some little changes to fill up spaces differently. So this is always not a perfect blueprint. This is a working design that I decide, yes, I like that, no, I didn't. So for example, you can see some of these are very, very tall, and I decided that I liked this flatter size better than this really deep arc. I think that this one looks like a little bit more like a fleur-de-lis kind of a shape. So I'll show you what is the difference between these two, and you can make your own decisions about what you like. Okay, so I have already prepared my fabric. I'm going to keep the design handy just in case we want to reference it. And we'll start working on setting things up. Okay, the first thing is that almost all of the Tile Titans, in fact all of them so far, are based on the 8-point crosshair. Yeah, Charlene, so who told you that, or who told me that? And did they tell us that because they never polished it before? So Charlene asked, somebody said that they were told not to polish this. So I was also told that. But is the question, will it damage this? Will it actually make this surface unusable, or will it just, they perceive that there's not a need? The people who have used it have said that it works amazing. So I might test it in a small area and kind of see what I think and compare, I think it's important to always understand why is somebody, like if I tell you something and I say, hey, this is a safety issue, it can hurt you or it can hurt your machine. I better have a good reason, not just because everybody does it that way, right? Quilters are naturally inventive. Yes, me too, Charlene. I was told that too. But I'm going to test it anyway because, people tell us stuff, but sometimes they just tell us that because that's what they've been told, not because they've actually tried it or tested it. So I'm going to investigate a little bit more. I'll report back to you later. So this is my center right here. This is a 15-inch block, and I went ahead and I marked my seam allowance. And the reason I did this is so I know that, whatever my design is needs to be inside the seam allowance. So the first thing is, let's mark our crosshair square marks. So this is not a million of these. I'm just going to try to center it right on that little cross mark that I made. And I did that. I folded it because I have stuff going on. I want to keep everything in the center, make sure the batting is aligned and all of that. Now I don't want these lines to come off or move around, so I'm going to use my bohine marker, which is very skinny, and I have to maybe push this out a little bit just to get it in there. I want to sort of lay the skinny part of this into the track so that it will be in the center. Okay. Sometimes if I don't do that, I end up with a double mark, and I don't want that. I just want a single mark. All right, so let me see. I'll scoot this forward just a little bit so I can mark those ones on the back. Make sure I didn't shift anybody. And even if I didn't do a good job marking, this is probably good enough for what we'll need. We're going to mark some additional reference lines as we go just to help us with the design. So what you've seen, this is a design class. This is not just quilting with the template, but it's how do I get the design that I want. And so we're combining marking, we're combining different size tools that maybe will fill up a space better or not. Like if I have a big gap and I need a longer template, I'll choose something that will fill it. So that's what we're exploring with the Tile Titans. And I am using some different tools. Some of the first ones that we'll start off with today are comparison of some different circles, okay? This is Simple Circle 2.5. Simple Circle is the same circle that's in the sampler set. This one is a little bit bigger than that, obviously. And this is Simple Circle set number 2. So I'll show you real quick. This is the packaging for it, set number 2, and you get these sizes, right? So all of these circles are going to have the quadrant and they're going to have the diagonal reference lines. So we'll be using this right here in the center and putting that 2-inch circle in there. Okay. Next, we're going to also pair it with a between the lines circle. So the between the lines has some really nice small circles. Notice that it doesn't have the same reference lines. So for our purposes, we're just going to use the quadrant to put this circle right in the center. But you can see that these are different. The markings are different. This is really designed for channels, for allowing you to sew within 2 lines without any markings right down the center because you could align it here. But this is more designed for that sort of crosshair square. Oh my gosh, look. I think it's time to replace my stable tapes. What do you think? I think we'll put some more on this one. Okay. But those 2 circles, they have different functions. I pretty much use them interchangeably, I won't lie, but you need a little bit different markings for the 2 of them. You can't always use them just the same. The between the lines has a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5, and a 2-inch circle. So those are nice and small. Those are more along the lines of those purl channels, that type of thing. When you put your stable tapes on, especially for circles, I want them on the 4 corners of my template. So you can see I'm putting them in the 4 corners. Okay. Hey, Becky Murphy-Michaels, welcome. We don't care if you're late, right? We just care that you're here. Never feel like you have to apologize. Your lives are important and you should be doing whatever you need to be doing. Hopefully you might want to be here if you can, but if you need to come back at a different time, that's why we have that available so you can, right? We don't want to prevent anybody from seeing these demos. Okay? All right, so we're ready to go. Of course, you saw I have like a ridiculous amount of staple tape ready at any time. All right, so let's do these 2 circles right off the bat. Those are the start of our design. I do have a nice, really visible pink thread. So I'll put this on first. Let's do this smaller one first. Is there a rhyme or reason to that? I don't want the outer circle to be drawn in to this one. So Donna Dean asked, do I ever clean my templates? Oh my goodness, you guys have a lot of questions today. Okay, do I ever clean them? Yes, I do. However, mine are very scuffed up. Okay, I'll be the first one to tell you. I mean, it's not like these are dirty. That's scratching, right? They're not sticky. They're scuffed. And that's because I use them a lot. I travel a lot. I do keep these on here because it means that when the templates are stacked, they don't necessarily run right against each other. I do clean them if they get really dirty. Like a lot of times the ones for class, I'll take the stickies off. I try to use just like mild soap and a little elbow grease and a paper towel. I have used alcohol. It's not recommended because it etches the acrylic, so you don't really want to use anything harsh. Best if you can just, use a little rubbing. That's the best. Okay, so my machine is all set up. It's light pressure. I'll show you real quick if I bring this down. My foot is got a little bit of room. At 1.5 is like the lowest it can go. I can move, no problem. Nothing's blocking me. So I'll go ahead and set my foot right against the edge of the circle. And let me take my first stitch with my machine. It'll actually pull up my bobbin thread just like that. I can see right there my little thread. So I'll just make him a little bit longer. And then I want him to go outside of the foot like that. Okay, so I'll stick that right against there. And now I've got both of my threads on the top, and I'll make them just a little bit longer so I can hold them for that first stitch. Okay, here we go. Needle down, it anchors my position, and I'm going to sew all the way around more than one time. Especially in this center one, I'm okay if we have a little extra stitching. Oh, that thread is in my way. There we go. Okay, here we go. I'm holding those 4 corners, and I think I'll go around again, just because I want to. Let's put a little extra thread on there, make it really defined. Oh, I love this color. It looks awesome. So little tacking here. Okay. Pick that up. I'll cut that thread. And I'm going to line it right back up. I've got a little dial right here that I can use to get my needle right where I want it. And then we'll pick that up and release your foot. So there's my bobbin thread. I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So let me show you something. If I pull this all the way up so that the tight side is all the way secured, then I'm cutting the bobbin side and there shouldn't be any slack on the bottom. Okay, so when I do that, here's my top thread, I'll cut that. Okay, let's put the next one on. This is the 1.5 between the lines, and now we're going to do the 2.5. 2.5 is going to give me a 1-inch difference, but where you'll see it is you'll have a 1/2 inch on each side of the circle. So what we're doing is just creating a little echo, and that'll give us a little bit of definition in this center space. Okay, my bobbin is still long, so it's easy for me to pick it up now. That first time I was just threading, so I wasn't sure if it was long enough, so I wasn't going to take any chances. Okay, so I'll just put my finger right over this, and here we go. Keeps those threads out of the way, and we'll do the same thing. I'm lined up on my crosshair square. So the other question that I saw, somebody asked if I could only have one set, like if you're only going to buy one. I would get the between the lines, right? But they're not the same. They're different sizes of circles. So when you say you can only get one set, you're getting not the same choices. They're not equal. It's not 1 inch in this size or 1 inch in that size. They are different sizes. I was recommending set 1 of the between the lines because there's only one, and the set 2. And what that will give you is circles from 1/4 inch all the way up to 4 in the 1/2 inch increments. And that way you get a lot of choices. So it's up to you. You always need to really decide what you need for yourself for the designs that you want to make. Okay, I'm just showing you different choices. Okay, so there's that bobbin thread again. Let's cut that. With the bobbin, the side that will stretch, that is the side that's attached right there to the bobbin. Right there, I can make it longer. This side is not stretching. That is on the bottom of the quilt. So when I cut that side, that relieves any additional thread on the bottom. Then we don't have any little tails sticking out on the back. Okay? All right, so we've done our 2 little circles. So let's do a little bit of preparation for the next part. We're going to be using the back to back, and we're going to create that border around it that creates kind of like a medallion shape. So I love Donnell's ruler. Love it. It's so useful. Okay, so let's mark. I'm going to turn it this way. I'll show you. It's upside down right now. But I'm going to mark 1 inch inside. I'm on the very outer line of this line, and I've got this 1 inch aligned on there. Okay, so I could do this when I'm, marking ahead of time, but I think it's important that I show you what I'm doing. So I hope you don't mind that I'm going to go ahead and just mark it right here on the screen with you guys. Okay, this is my bohine chalk marker. This is not going to come off until I'm ready. I will have to probably, brush vigorously to get it off, but it will come off. And I can erase it also. So since we're not ruler quilting and we have this block, I'm just going to rotate it so that I can move it around. And I'm going to show you just, again, a random rule for how I'm going to use this back-to-back template. I'm just making up some rules that will allow me to complete the design in a way that I can repeat it for each side. Okay, so I'm lining up. This reference line is what I'm going to use to line up the back-to-back each time when I get to each side. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to elongate all of these crosshair lines so that they are the correct length all the way out. Okay, so when you're marking with your crosshair ruler, as soon as you take it off, if you want to mark your lines all the way out, that will be really helpful. And then again, we just marked it, so it's 3/4 of an inch inside of our 15.5 inch block, which includes that seam allowance. Okay? And that little square is what we're going to use to line up the template on. Okay, so the stitching will actually be a little bit away from that, and you'll see that in just a second. Okay, last one. Here we go. All right, so we've got all the lines marked. I'm going to scoot out just a little bit. What kind of marker? Oh, D. If husbands weren't allowed in the quilting area, I'd be in big trouble, right? Yeah, this one will not wash out. So I'll have to actually brush on it. Usually if I use a little piece of fabric, this will actually come out pretty easily. It's not difficult at all. This is just a bohine chalk marker. Oh, I had my bohine. This one's Fons and Porter, but this is the one that I usually use. They're basically the same, right? These are so similar. I mean, the ink, everything, it's very similar, and they both erase. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get that back to back out, and let's start working on this boundary design. All right, this particular one is the 3-2. This is the same one that's in the Fun and Fancy set. And I want to show you, like, they have this line right here that we can use to line up every time. So where am I going to line it up? I'm going to actually line it up right there. So this, let me see if we can get you to look down just a little bit. See if maybe I'll hold it up. Okay. See that right there? See that little square? That is what I want to use, and I'm going to actually flip this over to the other side. This is the deeper side. I want to use this shallower side the whole time. So we'll do it that way. Okay? So I'm going to line it up, and the reason that I can do that, that means that every time that I'm on this corner, it's going to line up on this line right there and on this line, and then I'll work myself towards the center. Let's see, I think I need the bigger one. This one is not as big. Let me grab my 4-inch. This one is the wrong one that I did with the design. Hang on just a sec. I've got it handy. I thought that one worked, but it's not quite as long as I want. I need it to be a little bit longer, so this space is just taken up by one. So let me show you. I've got actually 2 of them, and you can choose different sizes. It's about how deep. You can see this one is actually half of a circle. So if this is 4, then this is 2. And you can see the numbers, they'll be right out on the side, right? So it's 4 inches from top to bottom, 2 for this circle and 2 for the dip. This one, it's going to be only 1, which means it's a 1/2 inch here and a 1/2 inch to the top of this curve. So there's always different ones that you can use that will have different depths. So this is the back-to-back set 4, and you get 4 different curvatures. So we'll use the 4-2, which is this one. And I'll just show you. I'm lining it up right on that same thing that we just talked about. Okay. Right there, right on the little square. And the first line down here is lined up all the way across, which means that when this dips down, it's not going to go past my line. It's actually going to touch that. And we're going to come right into the center, and we'll stop and flip it over. So let me see, I'll do it this way so you can see how it lines up. And let's sort of bring you in a little bit more over the top of the design so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. Can you guys see it real good? So I'm going to start with my foot in the cross mark, right? That's where we want to begin with the foot. So I've got the ruler aligned. I'm going to bring the foot right up to the line right on that cross mark from the crosshair. Okay, and we're going to sew all the way around. And this is how you can make an absolutely amazing frame with these back-to-backs. All right, I'm lined up. Here we go. Just keep sewing. We're going right to the middle. As it comes up here, I would have to move my fingers. This is a little bit bigger than that other template, so I might have to shift my hand position to make sure I can get right into that. Stopping right on the center of the cross mark line. This is the middle. I'm going to flip this over like this. Julie-Ann asked, can you use circles on quilts? Circles on quilts won't go to 1.5. That's why I chose not to use it in this case. But of course you can do the 2.5 with it. You should feel free to use whatever tool that will give you the design that you want. I'm not restricting you to any particular template. Now, this tool, since we flipped it, it should touch. You can see that we're not quite lined up, but if I just push it up a little bit, now we are perfectly aligned. So what I'm doing is right on this axis, this is mirror image to the corner, okay? So we'll get ourselves right to the crosshair line at the corner, and we'll get an exact mirror image of what we just did, and we'll get right to the same spot on the crosshair line that we started on, right? We started right on the crosshair line right there. So we ended it with it like this. In order to go this direction and keep it the same, I want the dip right here also. So I'm going to take this and I'm flipping it over, and right at this cross mark right there, I'm going to line it up right on the corner and make sure it's touching the ruler. And then the same thing, this entire line all the way along, this third line is on this reference line. Okay, so I'll get lined up, make sure that everybody's touching. I should be touching with the foot right at the ruler when I do that, because this is an exact mirror image. So then I can double check my spacing and come up just a little bit, and then we're ready to go. So when I'm moving side to side, I'm using two hands. I may adjust my hand position a little bit, getting me right into my center position right here. I'm right on the cross line. Okay, so we had it lined up right here. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to align this at the corner again. So wherever the foot is, remember that I got to push this down to get the corner aligned first. And once I do, then I'll be able to go ahead and sew. I want to just make sure I'm mirroring my image, right? Make sure it's the correct direction. Okay, stopping at the crosshair line right there. Okay, now, in order to keep this the same, I'm going to mirror it again. And right here at this corner, we're going to line up that little square just like we did before. We'll be touching right at the foot, and this line is aligned on this line. And then as I go down towards the center, I've got this entire line aligned all the way. You'll see as we sew. And let me just show you that right here, as this goes down, we're basically right at the 1/4 inch right on the chalk line. It's okay if it's 1 or 2 stitches either side. Remember that the chalk line is going to be invisible after we're done, right? We're not trying to match up with a seam. If there was a seam there, I would maybe be more careful and I would put the spacing gauge on there, but I don't really need to at this moment. Okay, so I'm right there. It's got that kind of a cool little dip right here. It's going to dip in and come back out. So this is what I just completed. I'm going to mirror image it, and remember that we're aligning this edge out here way down at the corner. So wherever this is touching, we're just going to let it, as long as we can line up our corner. So I'm going to scoot it just a little bit this way so we can actually see the corner in the camera. So a little bit of an alignment adjustment right there, and off we go. Now, because this is a square, this idea works. It does work, right? So remember that for this to work, every single time we have to mirror image it, right? So if this is the side, we want the dip again. We're going to flip it over and line up the corner. I liked this method because I felt like it had a very determined visual alignment that we could use. It didn't matter where the foot had to be, as long as we have these corners every time, then we're going to be doing it correctly. I do look at it and kind of visually track the line and make sure that I'm actually doing it correctly before I sew. I just, take a minute and say, okay, is that curve going the right way, right? If this one goes up, this one goes up. If this one is up here, then this one should mirror on this side. Okay, so again, flip it over. We're going to mirror image it, and notice how the hump is going to be right there, just like we want it. And now I would use my spacing gauge, so let me grab that also. Oh, they're always wandering off, a little far away. Let me grab him. using my pink one today just because he's pretty. He's pretty in pink. I love pink. It's my favorite color. See, I did pink nails. They kind of look red, but they're supposed to be pink actually. All right, so once we get this lined up, let's line up just like we're supposed to. Let's see if we can scoot the camera and we'll show this alignment as we sew. I think that'll give us a little better view right there. Okay, so again, this line is aligned on the chalk line. This right here is aligned right on the square. Okay, so we'll get that lined up. Now, I want to close that design, right? That is more important. We're close. We're touching with the ruler foot here, but we have to close right there. So if I need to, I'm going to tip that up just a tiny bit so that I get right to that 1/4 inch. Closing the design is more important than anything, right? So we got to make sure that we actually get right to where we left off. So right there we have pretty much a perfect closure. So I'll do a little bit of micro tacking real quick just to go right over the existing start point. Just a few stitches right in the existing line just to make sure it's nice and securely tacked. And now we can cut that. All right, scissors. Woo, that thread really retracted itself. Okay, I'm just going to cut that. It was a little twisty right there. It really twisted itself up when it let go right there. So we have kind of a cool shape. So let's start working on this center portion. This is the boundary that we need in order to put that center design in, right? So we'll do that first, and then if we want to echo or do something out here, we'll do that after. Now, where we're going with this next part is we need a 5-inch circle, a 5-inch square to mark off right on this center line in order to make the next part of the design. So I'm going to do that. I am a huge fan of Donnell's ruler right here. So let's just go ahead and use that center function, and then we can mark off the space that we need. Put the 0 right in the middle. So right there, right on the center line. And then I want 2.5 above and 2.5 below. And that will give me my 5. So 2.5 right there. And 2.5 right there. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing this way. Set it on the 0. And we'll mark the 2.5. Now I am going to mark this in, and you'll see why in just a second. We do need to mark these lines, and they should go right at the diagonals. They should hit right at the diagonal. Okay, and I'll show you the alignment in just a second that it actually is that 5, because we're looking for a 5-inch square. Okay. Try to connect those dots nicely. And then there's our 5 right there. Okay, so from here to there is 5. Now, let me show you what we're making. We're kind of making this little fleur-de-lis design. I'm just going to show you one of it right there. Okay, so there was my 5-inch mark right there. Notice that these do not touch. So when we're marking, you need to imagine that you're 1/4 inch away. So the foot is going to be touching a 1/4 inch away each time, right? The needle, the foot will touch the line, but the needle will be a 1/4 inch away. This is a 3-inch arc, and the distance here, we're going to mark each of those. So as we mark, notice that we're on the short side, right? We're putting the curlicues in this longer space. So right here, the distance from the center line is 3/8 on each side. So the first marking that we're going to do is that. Okay? So from that center line, if I put that 0 on like this, I can just mark at 3/8 on each side. 1, 2, 3. And I'll do that for each of those quadrants. So you can see I used this as 0 marking much more than I think I ever thought I would use it. I mean, I use it a lot. It's really, really helpful. So the lines that we're marking, what's the purpose? That's where the needle is going to come down for each of those spaces. So that's going to help us create this little arc in here as we go up. So from the corner, we're going to go arc and then up and down. And these little spaces are going to help us align our template. Okay. So right there and right there. So that's all of them. This is, again, 3/4 of an inch split, half on each side. And then from here, I'm going to mark at 3/4 for each of these spots. And this will be where I'll line up the ruler, and then it'll sew a 1/4 inch above. Okay? 1 inch, no, I said 3/4. 3/4 of an inch, and it'll sew closer once we align the ruler. We'll actually be lining up the template right on the dot, and it'll go a little bit further than the dot. How much further? A 1/4 inch further. Yep. Okay, so I think we got all of our dots in there so far. So let's go ahead and start sewing. We need our mini multi-arc. That's the template that we're going to use. And we're sewing back into the circle. Okay. When we're on this straight line, we're using that in order to guide ourselves. So let's start with that. I'm going to put my foot 1/4 inch away from the line. Okay. Put my needle right in the square. This was purposely chosen. I could make these touch, but I don't want them to, right? I want them to be just a little bit away. So I'm using my 3-inch arc, and I'm using it a 1/4 inch away from this dot. So it's a shallow arc coming in right to this dot. Okay? Spacing gauge is our friend. We literally are going to tip that template to get us right into there, right to that dot each time. So it's not a 3-inch arc, it's part of a 3-inch curvature, but it's shallower, right? Once we're on that line, we're going to use this 4-inch arc, and we're going to come up. This is bigger, so it's going to be just a little bit flatter, but we can repeat this on each side. Oh, I already messed up, right? That's okay. I guess we went to the line. We were supposed to go to above the line, right? Okay, now we'll just have to remember that. So I'm going to come back down to my next dot with my same arc. That's making this nice, narrow, elongated piece right here. I love that shape, and now we're going to repeat this. And when I align it, remember that we need to have a little bit of space, right? If I align this right here, the needle's going to come right there. I actually want the needle a little further away, right? Because I want a space. I want the foot to touch right there. So I'm using, instead of the 1/4 inch, I'm using the 1/2 inch. And see right now, the foot is touching right there. Okay, so we made our first one, and now what do? We're going to bring ourselves all the way in. Okay, we'll line this up. Let me just show you right now. I don't necessarily want them to come right to here, but if I align it so that it's a 1/4 inch away, I can bring this in just a little bit so it's tight. Let's see, let me look at my picture again. I think I'm going the wrong direction. Yeah, okay, perfect. We want to dip in on this side. Okay, so we'll make this a little bit narrow. We'll use that same shape right there, and we'll come in to right there. We're touching right on the corner. It's going to sew in a little bit. Okay. So the foot is touching right here, and I'm just going to travel so that the foot is touching on the other side, and that's how we can get back out. Okay. So just go around, just gently. Right there, the foot is touching, and now we're going to mirror this arc right here and come back out. So just so I can show you, if we want the edge of the foot to touch a 1/4 inch away, we have to use the 1/2 inch space on this. Okay, so what are we measuring? We kind of want to have the foot right there. So you can see that the alignment right there, we should be able to mirror that. This is about that same space, and then the foot will come in just a little bit further away from that. As soon as the foot touches, then we'll be ready to go ahead and put our next arc in. That didn't quite come up as much as I wanted to. That's okay, we're still gonna just fudge it because I don't wanna mess around with it too much. I'll adjust it the next time, make sure I do a better job. I'm gonna just come up a little bit more there to make sure we get the right arc in there. And then the 4-inch arc, and we'll do it the same way we did before with the spacing gauge, going right to the dot. Okay, and then flip it around, and we'll go back to the same dot back down there. So that little square is definitely helpful. It's kind of getting us what we want. So remember here we used the 1/2 inch from the corner. We want to come in a little further, not just a 1/4 inch. Right to the line. And then let me show you again. When we're coming back, we want to create this little dip right there. So we're going to line it up just like this. Down on the bottom, this is touching right at the crosshair line. So this is the 4-inch arc, and that'll give it just a little bit of space on each side of the crosshair line. Once we get to the circle, we'll just travel around the circle until your foot is on the other side. We're looking for the foot to touch that crosshair line. And then I'm going to do a little better marking right here because I want to make sure that I get what I want. If the edge of the foot is touching there, then the needle should be right there. That's what we're looking for. So now we can do a better job of marking that. What I want is the needle right there. So that will give us what we want. Okay, so put our 3-inch arc right there. Get us right into the center. Okay. So just by making some simple marked lines, we're getting kind of a really unique, fun shape. You could play with it, like if you want this to be a longer arc, you can put a different arc on there. Like this is only 4, but if we had a bigger space that we wanted to, we could put a longer one like a 6-inch or a 12-inch arc. If we wanted these to be deeper, we could put a different arc in there. This is just a space that I played with. You know, I tried the 2-inch and it was deeper than I wanted, so I went to a bigger arc that couldn't push up as much, and that gave me that little flatter arc. If I were to, say, put the 2-inch on here, I could get a lot more curve, but it looks a little rounder than I like. It actually kind of looks like this. And I just didn't like that as well. I felt like this little flat arc was a little prettier. And that's just personal preference. It's not, I didn't know what it was going to look like until I actually did it. So somebody was asking how I came up with this. Now I have to be truthful, right? I was inspired by a tile that I saw. I didn't magically create this design in my head. This was actually an element that I saw somewhere and I just thought it looked really cool. So that's what I'm doing. So again, here we want the 1/2 inch right from the corner. That'll get us that space that we want to have. So right there, okay. And then we'll put the 4" on and get us back right to, let's see, this side. So we're lining it up right on the crosshair line. So right there where this crosshair line comes down, the edge here is touching right there. And that'll give us the nice little dip. Plus it makes that so that they're not touching, right? This gives us that little space in between these two so they each have their own identity. So we'll just sew around and then check our spacing, make sure that we're aligned, okay? And again, if this is the 1/4 inch where the foot would touch, that's going to put the needle right there. So when I line up to bring my 4" arc and come back out, that'll help me align that side. I want that needle a 1/4 inch away, so that way I can get what I want. I can get right to that spot. Okay, there's my 3" arc, and there's my spacing gauge right there. Just by using some of these simple marks that we've made, that's helping us make sure that everything is the same, that we can get the reference and the registration marks that we want to have. Okay, just flip that around and coming right back a 1/4 inch away with our spacing gauge to get right on that dot down there. Okay, 3" arc and 1/2 inch from the corner right there, right on the diagonal. That's going to give me that perfect alignment that I want. Okay, now this one's pretty easy, right? When we come back, we just want to make sure that that's going to close, right? So let's dip in. Here is the crosshair reference line right there. I'll put it right on there, and I'm going to sew into the circle. So the circle is giving us that travel, okay? And then we'll go to the other side of the circle, just a few stitches to get us onto the other side, and we'll mirror image that. Now right here, I do want this to close very precisely, so I'm going to put this, stick these under there, kind of give them a little tension so I know right where the last stitch is, and I'll come in and we'll make that last stitch. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and tack them off just like I always do, just very slowly working right in the existing stitch line. So what do you think so far? Just look, it's a lot of steps, right? Okay, I know that, but you can get the design that you want. Just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. If you're that person that just wants to design your own quilt, this is for you, right? This is showing you how you can make those templates obey, make them do what you want. Doesn't that look so cool? Now remember, all those lines are going to go away. This is that center framework that we have created. So now let's kind of come back just a little bit. Let me see if I can scroll through a little bit and see if we can answer any questions. It is, I know you guys have put a lot of questions in there. So the questions and stuff go by so quickly and I can't always scroll back enough to answer them. So if you have any questions right now, I'll take a minute, and if you want to put your question in right now, if I haven't answered it, I will try to answer it. So I'll go ahead and start setting up for the next piece, but I will be checking the screen for like the next minute. So if you stick your question in there now. So right now, this entire part right here was developed just using this and some basic geometric relationships, right? I decided that I wanted this part to be skinnier. I decided that I didn't want this arc to be really, really deep, and the 5" gave me that. It's pushing this out within this space. This is about 3/4 that we measured from this, and we may end up using that to travel, so it's okay that we have a little space. We could leave this, I mean, this is not a big opening, but when we put the curlicues in here, I want to show you how we can use that, but we can travel to fill in the space that is in there. Okay, so this was the mini multi-arc, but any 4-inch arc or 3-inch clamshell could totally. Why do you snip your threads with upside down scissors? Are they upside down? What does that mean? I don't know. Curvy, you mean? Because they have an angle? Just because? They're sharp and they're convenient. I love them. Okay, so we use the back-to-back out here. This was the back-to-back number 4-2, I think. Yeah, 4-2. You can see right there. It's hiding, 4-2. So this was 4-inch. The other back-to-backs can still work based on how much space. I could just keep continuing until I got to the middle. It's not that it has to be one arc, but you know, it'll change the look of this depending on how many ups and downs you have, okay? So I'm going to answer Becky Murphy-Michaels. So I saw Edwina, she went ahead and she did her Titans with Templey. And so I decided that I would follow her example. So thank you, Edwina. I'm following your lead. So I decided that maybe I could do a better job if I did some Templey. So we're definitely creating spaces for Templey, and we're going to create some additional ones in here with our next ones, okay? So a lot of these are just arcs. Like this is just curvature too, right? I mean, this is based on a 4-inch, but it's kind of flat. So that's what most of the back-to-backs are. There are a lot of different size curvatures. Okay, so we'll put these away, and we did also the between the lines 1.5 inch and the simple circle 2.5. Okay, so that's all we've done so far. Let's get out 2 different curlicues. Both of these curlicues are from set 2. Okay, now we have some pretty awesome space right here. So I want to make a really quick mark on here, and we'll make it with the first one. This space right here, from the dip right here, we're going to curl in and put our little curlicue from that spot, and we're going to try to travel around as we do it. Okay, so first off, we have a 1/4 inch, you know, if this was our pinky finger right there, and I want to push this up so that it goes just over this line. Not actually a whole 1/4 inch, because it's okay if they have a little tiny space, especially if we're doing template. I don't want them necessarily to touch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it fit right in there. It'll fit right in the space, a 1/4 inch on either side, and it fits right to that spot, just magically. I didn't plan that. I just put it on there, and I was like, oh, perfect. That looks good. So typically, then this should be the same. If this comes all the way up, each one of these should fit just the same. I should be able to pull this up all the way. But to make sure that they're the same height, I'll show you one little tip once we do this first one. Okay, we're going to start right there. I'm picking my needle up right in that spot. The reason I'm orienting the curlicue this way instead of making them kind of go towards each other is if I flipped it around, then I will not get the perfect 1/4 inch that I have right now, where it's not interfering with all of the center design that we worked on so hard. So I'm going to get my needle right down there, and I'll get all these extra threads underneath just to get them out of my way. I don't want them in my space. Okay, so this is the anchor. Pull it all the way up, and just let me show you right down here. This fits just perfectly right there. Can you see that? This opening is touching on the center line, and this opening is touching right there. So hopefully as we sew, I should potentially be able to do that on every side. Okay, somebody said, is set 2 the best set to get for the curlicue? the reason I like set 2, it's the only set that has this big one. And I want this big one. I love it. It's my favorite. So if you got set 1, then you should buy the big one because it's pretty awesome. But you know, they're similar. I think it's personal preference. I'm going to sew all the way in. Okay, so let me show you. We'll go in. On the curlicue, we can only go on one side. That's a lot of talking, right? Get sewing. I always worry about talking too much. Okay, now I'm going to take this off. It has awesome openings. Very easy for me to take it off. Now where's the other one? Did I set it down? Oh my goodness, I had 2 of them. There he is. He's hiding back there. Okay, let's see what happens. I want to show you how we're going to line this up, so I am going to turn this a little bit. I am almost down to the base, but not, you know, closing the circle. So put this on the same direction, and I'm going to try to line it up right there, and I want to come back on that same 1/4 inch. So right down at the base right here, I need to be a 1/4 inch away. So right there, see how the foot is right inside the circle? And then right down here, it pretty much matches. Okay, so let me show you. Here we go. All right, let me take it off. Oh, I love it. It looks so awesome. Doesn't that look so awesome? I love it. Oh my gosh, they're just so cool. So we got a little gap right here. So how do we get wherever we need to go? How do we get to the next one? So we have this right here is the 3-inch arc, and we can just pick a little spot. So I'm just going to pick a spot right here. We'll just do 1 inch from our 5-inch corner. This is just random. Okay. Right? And from this, I'm going to arc right up to here, and I'm going to arc right back into there. Okay? All right, so let's get our little arc back out again. And if this arc didn't fit, which, I mean, it does fit pretty nicely, if I want to fill that space, I can go all the way up to it like that as a mark, or I can use this as a 1/4 inch away. So I think we'll do that. We'll use this dot as our alignment. That way we don't have to measure every time. As long as I have the 1/4 inch right here, I'm good. I don't want anything that would interfere with my really cute curlicue that we just made. Okay, so we'll start right there, and then we'll do the same thing. We're coming right back where we left off before, right at a 1/4 inch. So I'm just tipping that arc to get me right in there. Hopefully I didn't mess up with my curlicue, right? We'll see. Let's see what happens. You should arc out just perfect. So remember what we said, we're all the way in the foot and we're touching on both sides. So I'm going to actually scoot this down just slightly so it'll fit in there. I'm going to go all the way around the circle until my foot is basically aligned right at the edge right there. Then take this off, okay? And we'll just be switching back and forth. Fortunately, these are so easy to switch back and forth. So I'm going to align my foot at the same spot so that the edge of the template is lined up. And then I'm going to get myself aligned down at the bottom with my 1/4 inch. So I'm going to scoot these over so that I can measure with my spacing gauge. Just so you see what we're measuring, since I can only go on one side right here, I want to measure right at a 1/4 inch so that I can come right back down and align. I'm going to scoot this just a little bit. I don't want it to be catching a little too soon. I want to create that little division right there. So I'm adjusting it just a little bit so it'll go right back on that same line. I could tell it didn't quite fit, so I made some adjustments. So this is the corner that we're getting right there, right? Doesn't that look cool? And we could put another, like a little arc in here if we wanted to, or something to come up here if this space needed extra divisions in order to make it good for template. We could go ahead and do another one. But I absolutely love this curl. I figured that out today as I was playing with it, and having different sizes really is awesome. So let's go ahead, we'll continue, and we'll do at least one more. It's 4:02. I know this is taking a long time to develop this block, but this way we can go ahead. So if we want to continue around, we can use whatever we want right here in order to get up. Like if I want to echo this arc, make it deeper, I can use the 4-inch arc and just come up over the top of that right here, or I can use a 1/4 inch, whatever I want to do. So right now that's a 1/4 inch above, so that it'll give us a 1/2 inch spacing between those two, but it won't bring us all the way to the very top, which is good. So it's right there, won't connect. And then we'll just use that 1/4 inch and get back down to the bottom. And get right into there. I love it. Doesn't that look cool? So that's going to be how it's going to be on each one of those as we go around. All right, so right here, the big one comes first. And from the position that we're in, we're aligning it all the way in here. And then the reference is that it should just fit perfectly. So I'll just bring it down just a little bit. I want both sides to touch the line. That's the decision that we've made in order to get the relationship that we want. Coming all the way around the circle and stopping right where all of this lines up right there. Then take this off and put the other one on. Okay, so as I line up that other side, I really, really want to check this 1/4 inch right here, okay? The reason for that is if I don't want a lot of extraneous lines. I want it to connect down at the base and come right in at a 1/4 inch. So right there, as I'm watching, it should match up and then hopefully get me all the way down to the bottom in a nice clean line. Okay, and I control that, and you'll see that some of them are a little bit deeper. See how this one had a little bit more depth and this one connected quicker? Nobody's going to really notice that, but I do want a little openness right here, so it kind of pulls it down. And then we have that nice little space right there based on where we aligned it. All right, so let's go ahead and set up the other side. So as somebody just said, this is their addiction. Clearly it is mine also. So right here from the corner, we marked it at 1 inch, if you remember. That was just a random choice. We could mark it whatever we want, and we can put whatever we want in order to get us there. We could use a curvy line if we wanted to, whatever. We aligned it so that it was right to the dot, right? As long as we had the 1/4 inch, we said we were okay with that. I mean, you could even use like a circles on quilts or a spinifex, anything that could fit right between these two spaces. You could go ahead and use any template that you wanted in order to fill that. And you could get lots of different shapes that might do that. So the nice thing about this is that the way that this is filling in, it gives us that ability to travel all the way around. Since a lot of these are easily transferable, like the outside of the multi-mini arc, it really lets us easily shift between the templates. So this looks kind of big right there. It actually is. So before I start, I'm actually going to take about 3 stitches up the line. 1, 2, 3 right there. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't want to cut in right there, so I'm just making that adjustment ahead of time. So keeping the edge of the foot right along the template, right until I'm lined up right on the cut right there. Okay, when I line this one up, I'm going to align it on the foot the same, right there. And then once I get that, then I'll align the back to give me that 1/4 inch. So, and again, I don't want to cut in, so I'm going to do a little fudging on the way down just in case, you know, I don't want it to create havoc. So I can see that it changed the angle just a little bit, so I'm just going to get myself back on the line so that I can really travel right down. So there'll be a little bit of extra thread there, but I still think it'll look really good. Oh, so far so good. It's looking awesome, don't you think? Look, I'll show you. Okay, there you can see like 2 of the corners right there. So we'll just try to continue. That way we can get a little bit of the full look and also close the design. And then I'll show you one more thing that I want to kind of put on the outside that would be fun, I think. All right, I got to keep the mini arc handy because we are using that. Okay, so we said the 4 inch, and we were spacing this at a 1/4 inch. So when I line this up right here, I'm making the arc a 1/4 inch apart, but I don't want to go so far that I'm not going to be able to fit this in, right? He's got to come all the way to the tip right there, and the foot will be touching right there. So I think I'll take one more stitch actually, right there, and then come back down to the center. Okay, so now that we've done a lot of that, we can do this much faster, right? Now we don't have to explain every single little step. Now we can start sewing just a little bit faster. Put this on, line it up, check the spacing, and off we go. So I think, you know, so many times people are like, oh, that takes forever. I don't know if I would do that. Well, it takes a lot longer to explain for me than it does for me to actually sew it. So I think that's something too. Once you get the pattern in your head, then you're not going to be taking so much time. You're not going to need as much time. So I'm going to just tip this a little bit so that you can see as we line it up. I'll get it right on there and then just tip this to give me that 1/4 inch along the back side. As it's sewing, I'm looking to see, am I connecting with my 1/4 inch? And if I need to make a tiny adjustment, I'll do that because I want to get right on the line along this part right here. Even if it's double stitched, I'm just kind of manipulating the ruler just a little bit to get me what I want. And again, a simple little reference line, super easy. We'll just make a little dot. And now we know where we're going. Lining that right up to the dot and coming all the way up. So you can really see how also important that the crosshair reference lines are. Whenever we're doing something like this kind of a design, the reference lines really, really help us create something like this. It helps keep it regular, helps everybody have their own space. Okay, right at the bottom right there. And now we'll put this next one on. Push it up and check that spacing just like we did with the other sides. Maybe push it down just a tiny bit so it'll fit right inside the boundary. This one is right on the line. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Couldn't have been any tighter. It was right at a 1/4 inch. How many of you guys sew with your spacing gauge in your hand? I do that a lot. Happens to me all the time. I'm like, why am I holding this? My hand is cramping up. It's okay. All right, and we'll get our 1/4 inch aligned right there. So let's see if we can line that up. right at a 1/4 inch and get us back around. So checking, trying to see that I can get right on my 1/4 inch as I go, making small adjustments to the curve so that I can get in. You can see right here, it was way down, so I kind of like shifted it just a little bit. Yeah, if you popped away, you know, we're just trying to finish this part of the design. And so far I love it. I think it's looking amazing. So remember, when we get to the top, we're using a 1/4 inch. So you can just estimate that. We want a 1/2 inch here because we want enough room to not crowd the top of this arc. We don't want it to touch all the way to the outer border. Although if you wanted to, you could make it do that. Like if that was part of your template plan, you could definitely do that, and that would close that space on that side. Okay, so we're right in our little divot. Oh, I think these look so pretty. Then the big one, make sure you put the big one on the correct direction. We want them to be opposed to each other as we do the arcs. Okay, here's the last, and then we'll connect it up as we go. We got to put one last arc in to connect them both. So push this down just a tiny bit to get it to fit right in, and it's not going to cut into anything. Go all the way around until the foot is touching right at the very edge right there, and then just pop it off. Okay, checking my alignment so that I can get my 1/4 inch alignment right at the bottom, right there. And here we go. Make sure I get right on my crosshair line, or right on my curlicue line. So you can see that they all are a little different. You know, some of them touch sooner, some of them touch later, but overall, I'm not worried about that. I think that all that is going to not be an issue. It'll all work out. So there's our little 1 inch mark. And we'll just line right up to it with our 4 inch arc. Makes it super easy. We don't have to do a lot of complicated measuring or matching. Then just flip it over, and you're using your spacing gauge to get exactly into the little spot right there, a 1/4 inch right there. Perfect. I love that. That spacing gauge always gets us right where we want to. Okay, so now I brought you in just a little bit. We'll put this big one on, and it actually fits just perfectly. Everything fits. So this line is just slightly bigger. Notice right there, I'm inside that 1/4 inch. It's close, but it's not going to stitch inside of the other arc. It's probably going to track just on the outside. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's put this one in. So I do adjust, like if I see the design is going to do something I don't want, I do those micro adjustments to make sure that they'll behave. Lines won't cross over where I don't want them to, things like that. That's always at your discretion. You're in charge of that always, right? You get the freedom to make all those adjustments. So as we do this last one, I'm going to bring this around instead of having it so far away from you. I want to show you what it looks like. Okay, we'll come out just a little bit. Okay, this is where we're stitching. So when I'm aligning this curlicue, I always am checking that side. Okay, so I can just kind of go like that. The arc is very similar to the previous one. So it's going to bring us around and right into the existing line. So if it goes a little too far, I'll make a little correction as I go. Try to clean up the line a little bit and get me right down to the bottom. Okay. All right, here we go. Here's our last little arc, and this will close us out. We're going to end right where we started, so I love that. Makes it really, really easy for us to close the design. A 1/4 inch above with the arc right here. I'm looking right at the very tip, and I'm a 1/4 inch above. The arc is just tipped enough. So this would be a 1/4 inch where it's basically laying on itself, and then I'm just tipping it so I get that 1/4 inch. Here it's a 1/2 inch, so it'll go right above the existing arc and create a little echo right there. And basically it should touch right at the stitch line there. So let's just bring you guys in just a little closer right there. We're about to close that design, so I'll show you that last closure. So right here, this is that spacing gauge. We're getting right into our stop point right there. I can see that this won't interfere. The spacing gauge tells me that my path all the way down is perfect. Okay, there's a lot of thread right here, so little tacking stitches right in this area won't even be noticed. I'll just stitch right up that line, and then we'll close that. All right, let's cut that. All right, so let's come back out just a little bit so you can see a bigger angle of the design. So each part of that is pretty easy to replicate in the sense that our biggest marking element was this 5-inch square, right? And we were able to create that center panel. And then each of these had a really defined space. We just started there, and then we sewed up and down, and each one of these fit in just perfectly. And that was based on what I could fit in, based on how big I could use a smaller curlicue if I had a smaller space or whatever. And then something else that might be fun is, you know, you could maybe put a little curlicue right in here, like if you needed more, or you can, from this space, you could put a curlicue going in this way if you wanted to. And those can even come from outside of the block right here. You know, you could make them start, the start points, and you could just mark some position out here and they could curlicue in and out, and then you could travel in the boundary and curlicue in and out to fill in this space if you wanted to. Another thing that I thought would be really fun is we have some space right here. Okay, let me just show you how much space that we actually have. From the corner, that is 1 3/4 amount of space from here to the seam line right there. So one of the things I thought would be cool, and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to, is I think it would be cool to put Spinifex number 4 kind of in there like this. Or you could even put it in there like this on either side. And as long as it could fit, and then this, I'm going to echo this, and it would come right up to the design and then continue on the other side. If we're doing temply, we have to think about this intersection, right? Because then you can't cut right there. You know, if you have this would have to be some kind of echo inside in order for you to have separation. So always thinking about that, like in here, that might be good to have temply right here and to cut the curlicues. Just, you know, think about it very clearly before you start cutting. That's my key. And like if we wanted to, we can connect this right here, right? So that this whole thing right here is cut. This is just another line using your curlicue. I could literally put that curlicue on like this, and I can just stitch that in, and then this whole section right here could be a cutout right there, which would, I think, emphasize this shape right there, and then keep this. So those are just some different ideas as far as template. I have to say I really have enjoyed playing with the curlicues with the Tile Titans. So definitely that is going to be, I think, one of the anchors of my Tile Titans designs, because I find more and more uses for them. There's a lot of flourishes in different tiles that really allow this to be really fun. And the other thing I want to do here is I want to put echo right here. So that'll be the last thing. I'll go ahead and echo that because I think it's going to look amazing. And the echoing is always very powerful when we have templates. So let's do it. Let's just get that ruler out and I'll show you how we do it. So we used the narrower side of this 4-2, okay? In order to echo it, we're still going to be stopping and transitioning right on that diagonal. So what I want to do is just lay this on there. I got to flip it the other way. Let's make sure that my line is extended enough. I think the other ones are kind of already extended. Nope, not this one. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to lay it on there, and I want to overlap it just a little bit. So let's see if we can get it to line up. First, put it right on the line. I'm going to scoot this over. Put it on the existing arc like that, and then push it straight up. That's going to give you the best relationship, and make sure that you have a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch along it. And then we'll start right here at the corner. So the difference in spacing that we're going to get with this right now is a 1/2 inch because we pushed it up a 1/4 inch. Okay, so like for example, if we ended up cutting that, like template, that's very narrow. For some reason, I cannot pick up that thread. My fingers are not working good today. There we go. Thank God for tweezers, right? But if you felt like you wanted a bigger cut, well, I guess maybe we should make a bigger cut then. Let's make it 1/2 inch. Okay, just because we can. All right, I'm going to go right to the same transition point. Did I eyeball that? I kind of did, actually. Does that matter? Well, it depends on how good your eyeball is, right? So now, same thing, right? We want to match this up. So we're going to mirror image it, match it to the same curve first, and then just push it straight up. Trying to keep one of the straight lines parallel. It might not be right on the line, but it should be the same distance away on each side. And that will help you to line up all of these. Right here at the top, I even have a little reference line right here that this can line up right at that same distance, the same spacing. Here we go. It's lined up pretty much right on the line. It'll get me right into the diagonal there. So stopping right on the diagonal and then flipping it around. Again, line it up on the curve first and then push it up. And you should be able to see that 1/2 inch. And if I can't, I think I went like 1 stitch too far. So I'm going to just do a couple of stitches here, and then I'm going to push this up just a little bit more, just because it gave me a little bit of room in order to do that. Coming right into our center line, stopping right at the midpoint. Right there, flip it over, okay, line it up on the existing curvature. That's going to help you have the right orientation as you push it up, okay? And I'm right into the diagonal. Love that. I love how this is going to make a nice space that we could cut away so that we can either have a band of color or we can cut this side. Okay, so same thing. Let's make sure I'm doing it correctly. The shallow side, right? Line it up as best you can. This one has to kind of push up a little bit right there. So again, I'm going to take, I think, 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then I'm just going to shift this over so I can keep this distance the same. For 2 stitches, nobody will notice that, but it'll make the curve more even along the full length. So I'm right at the midpoint right there. And then again, same, flip it, align it on the existing curve first, and then you're going to push up to get that 1/2 inch right there. Right to that diagonal, stopping right on that line. Okay. It's right on this curvature right here, and then I'm going to push it up so I can get those 2. So for some reason, it seems like I need like 1 or 2 stitches to get that lined up properly each time. But I'm totally fine with that. Nobody will see anything. It'll be fine. Okay, flip it, line it up, okay, and then push it up so you get that 1/2 inch. And let me show you. I'm going to show you. We're going to adjust this one so it'll come right to where we want. If I need to make an adjustment, a good place to adjust is at the top of this arc, because this is a very not noticeable. So here I'm just going to scoot this over just a tiny bit so that I can get right into my stop spot right there. I'll just pivot that a little bit to bring me right in to finish that. Okay, and then we'll tie it off. Okay, we'll cut that. I think I have like 1 extra thread right there that I'm going to clip. All right. So there's where we're at. So I think I'm going to put a Spinifex number 4, maybe coming in like 2 little quirky flourishes right there, because I think I'll make them a 1/4 inch apart, and I'll make a little line right here and put a little mini Spinifex right in there in case I want to template this area. And that way they'll have their own area that can be cut away. They can touch right there, but it's also okay if they don't. It's, however, I think it'll be easier to cut it. I'll play with that a little bit ahead of time. But this is the whole thing. Let's bring the camera out just a little bit, and then you can see the whole design. All right, there we go. I think, can you see pretty much all of it at this point? So we have some room, like I said, right here in these little spots. We'll put like a mini Spinifex in that area. I think that'll be fun. And, you know, if we needed some more space for template, we could put some other little things in here. I mean, it's totally up to us. If we wanted to, you know, put like a little circle in here, maybe then that would add another layer of color. I would plan all of the template first with the existing design, and then if I felt like I needed another space, like when you go cut open, cut open, cut open, and there's too many opens right next to each other, that's when I try to add in another layer in order to fill in a space that might need some additional, you know, whatever. So like, you know, adding in that line right there, maybe we needed another space to make the template balance. So that's what I would do as far as that goes. And this is also like, I want to just show you real quick. This is a square, right? But like this block, if you put it on point, oh, looks so awesome. And it changes it because there's kind of a square right here. So when you put it on point, it really, I think, looks a little bit different. So those are also just design choices. Some designs are going to look better on the straight and some will look a little bit better on. And Edwina, I can't wait to see what you do with this block because you're awesome. So she's done Template with all of them and has published her pictures and they look pretty fantastic. So I love interacting with you guys. It's been so fun getting to know so many people. For the next 6 weeks, I am traveling almost the entire time. I think I'm home for like 4 days. I get home and then I fly out the next day and I get home and I fly out the next day. So I'm going to my first place that I'm going to is QuiltCon Atlanta. Then I'm going to Sew and Stitchery Expo in Puyallup, Washington, near Seattle. Then I'm going to Lackland, Florida. Then I'm going to Branson, Missouri. So I will be traveling a lot. So you will not see too many live activities in the next 6 weeks. If I am live, I will publish a note, but for the next few weeks, it is going to be very doubtful that I will be able to do that. So you guys can have a little break and catch up on whatever you need to. And I hope that I see you out in the field. So take care of yourself, you guys. Have an awesome weekend. Happy quilting.